The bullet missed Zara Everhart's head by 3 inches, close enough that she heard it whistle past her ear before it embedded itself in the saloon door behind her. And she dropped to one knee with her pistol already drawn before most men could blink. The dusty streets of Durango, Colorado territory, had gone silent, except for the sound of her breathing and the frantic retreat of whoever had just tried to kill her. She counted to 10, waiting for another shot that never came, then slowly rose to her feet and brushed the red dirt from her leather riding pants. 3 weeks tracking the Dalton brothers through mountain passes and desert towns, and now someone was warning her off the trail. She was not the kind of woman to heed warnings. Zara had come west from Philadelphia 6 months ago with a leather satchel full of wanted posters and a burning need to prove herself in a profession dominated by men who thought she belonged in a parlor drinking tea. Her father had been a bounty hunter before a gang of outlaws killed him when she was 17. She was 23 now, and in those 6 years, she had learned everything he had tried to teach her before his death, plus everything he had never lived long enough to share. She could track a man through rock and river, read the signs of a campfire hours old, and shoot the hat off a running horse at 50 yards. The marshals in Denver had laughed when she asked for information on high-value targets, but they had stopped laughing when she brought in Jacob Kearney 3 months later, alive and ready for trial. The Dalton brothers were different. They were smart, careful, and they had stayed ahead of the law for 2 years. The bounty was $500 per brother, dead or alive. Zara wanted them alive. Dead men told no tales, and she wanted to know who had hired them to rob the Denver bank where her father's friend worked. The robbery had gone wrong, and 3 people had died. She had personal reasons beyond the money, though the money would keep her fed and moving for another year. She pushed through the saloon doors and found the barkeep polishing glasses with studied disinterest. The other patrons had cleared out when the shooting started. Typical. She laid a coin on the bar and asked for whiskey neat. The barkeep poured without meeting her eyes. "Who knew I was asking about the Daltons?" she asked quietly. "Half the town by now, I reckon," the barkeep muttered. "You've been showing that poster at every establishment on Main Street." She had been. Perhaps not the wisest approach, but time was slipping away. The Daltons had passed through here 4 days ago, according to her information. 4 days was an eternity on the trail. She drank the whiskey in one swallow and set the glass down harder than necessary. Where would I find someone who knows the back trails out of town? Someone who might have seen which way they rode? The barkeep hesitated, then jerked his chin toward the door. "Vincent Vance. Runs a horse ranch about 3 miles north. Used to ride with some rough characters before he settled down. If anyone knows the outlaw roads, it would be him, but he does not talk much about those days anymore. Why not? Changed his ways, he says. Went straight about 3 years back. Does not want anything to do with that life." Zara felt a familiar frustration building. Reformed outlaws were either the most helpful sources or the most stubborn obstacles. There was no middle ground. She thanked the barkeep and headed for the livery stable where her horse waited. The mare was a sturdy buckskin she had bought in Denver, good-tempered and reliable. She saddled her quickly and rode north out of town as the afternoon sun began its slow descent toward the mountains. The Vance ranch appeared gradually, starting with well-maintained fence lines and then expanding into a spread of grazing land where horses moved in lazy clusters. The main house was modest but solid, built from local timber with a stone foundation. A barn stood nearby, its doors open to the cooling air. She saw a man working near the corral, training a young horse on a lunge line. Even from a distance, she could see he was tall and moved with the easy confidence of someone who had spent his entire life on horseback. She rode up slowly, keeping her hands visible. The man glanced in her direction, then turned his full attention to her as she approached. He was probably in his late 20s, with dark hair that needed cutting and eyes the color of the stormy sky before rain. He wore simple working clothes, a cotton shirt with the sleeves rolled up and denim pants dusty from the day's labor. There was something in the way he stood that suggested readiness, a controlled tension that never quite left men who had lived by their guns. "Help you," he called out. His voice was deep, rough around the edges but not unfriendly. Zara dismounted and led her horse forward. "I am looking for Vincent Vance. You found him." He secured the lunge line and walked toward her, studying her face with open curiosity. "You are the bounty hunter asking about the Daltons in town. Word travels fast. Someone took a shot at you about an hour ago. That kind of news tends to spread." He looked her over, not with the dismissive judgment she often encountered but with a more assessing gaze. "You hurt?" "No." "They missed." "Lucky. Skill," she corrected. "I moved before they fired." Something that might have been respect flickered across his face. "What brings you to my door, Miss?" "Everhart. Zara Everhart." She pulled the folded wanted poster from her jacket pocket. "I was told you might know the trails the Daltons would use leaving Durango. I am willing to pay for information." Vincent took the poster and examined it, though she suspected he knew exactly what the Dalton brothers looked like. His jaw tightened slightly as he read. When he handed it back, his expression had closed off. "I do not involve myself in that business anymore," he said. "I am sorry you rode out here for nothing. The barkeep said you went straight 3 years ago. That is admirable, but these men killed innocent people in Denver." A bank clerk who had a wife and 3 children, an elderly woman who was depositing her savings, a young man who had just started working there. She kept her voice level, factual. "I am not asking you to ride with me. Just point me in the right direction." Vincent turned away and walked back toward the corral. For a moment she thought he was dismissing her entirely, but then he spoke without looking back. "You plan to take on 3 armed outlaws by yourself. I have done it before. The Daltons are not common criminals. They are organized, careful. They will kill you without hesitation." "I know what they are." He turned then, and she saw something complicated in his expression. Concern, maybe, or memory. "Why are you really hunting them?" "The bounty hunters I knew would not risk their lives for $500 a head, not when easier targets are available." Zara met his eyes steadily. "They worked with the men who killed my father. I want to know who gives them their orders." Understanding dawned on his face, followed by something that looked like sympathy. He sighed and leaned against the corral fence. "You should let the marshals handle this. The marshals have been trying for 2 years. I have been on their trail for 3 weeks, and I am closer than the law has ever been." She walked over to stand beside him, close enough to see the faint scar along his jawline. "Please, I just need to know which way they went." Vincent was quiet for a long moment, watching his horses. The young one he had been training trotted over and nuzzled his shoulder. He stroked the animal's neck absently. When he finally spoke, his voice was low. "There is an old mining road that runs northwest from here up into the San Juan Range. Most people do not use it anymore since the silver played out, but men running from the law sometimes take it because it offers cover and eventually connects to trails heading into Utah. If I were running from Durango, that is the route I would choose." Relief flooded through her. "Thank you." "Do not thank me yet. That road is dangerous even without outlaws waiting to ambush you. Rock slides, mountain lions, and weather that can turn deadly in an hour." He looked at her directly. "You would be smarter to give up this chase." "I have never been accused of being smart," she said. "Just stubborn. I can see that." He pushed away from the fence. When are you planning to leave? First light tomorrow. I need to resupply in town and let my horse rest tonight. You will need a pack animal for that terrain. The trail gets too narrow for wagons and you will want extra provisions. He seemed to be thinking aloud, working through logistics. Damn it. What? He ran a hand through his hair, frustration evident in every line of his body. I am going to regret this. Wait here. He strode toward the house and disappeared inside. Zara stood uncertainly by the corral, wondering if she had pushed too hard. The horses wandered over to investigate her, and she let them sniff her hands while she waited. Vincent emerged 10 minutes later carrying a bedroll and saddlebags. "What are you doing?" she asked. "Coming with you. Someone needs to keep you from getting killed in those mountains." He walked past her toward the barn. "And before you argue, I know that country better than anyone. You will make better time with a guide, and the Daltons know me. If we catch up to them, I might be able to talk them into surrendering without bloodshed. You know them." He stopped and looked back at her. "I used to ride with men who knew them. I was never part of their particular outfit, but our paths crossed. They might remember me. It is a long shot, but it is better than you riding into their guns alone." Zara should have felt grateful, but instead she felt wary. "Why would you do this? You said you wanted nothing to do with that life." "Because I owe a debt," he said simply. 3 years ago I was where those men are now. Someone gave me a chance to change, to build something decent. Maybe I can pay that forward, and maybe I can keep you alive long enough to realize this is a bad idea." There was sincerity in his voice that made her believe him, though her instincts warned against trusting anyone too quickly. Still, he was right about the terrain and the value of a guide. She nodded slowly. "All right, but I lead this hunt. If we find them, I bring them in." "Agreed. I am just here to help you survive the journey." He continued toward the barn. "I need to arrange for my hired hand to watch the ranch. We can stay in town tonight and leave at dawn. There is a boarding house that rents clean rooms." As the sun sank lower, painting the mountains in shades of amber and purple, Zara helped Vincent prepare for the journey. He moved with practiced efficiency, selecting supplies and gear with the expertise of someone who had spent years on the trail. She found herself watching him, noting the way he checked everything twice, the care he took with his animals. This was not a man who did things halfway. They rode back to Durango together as twilight settled over the valley. The town had come alive with evening activity, saloons spilling light and music into the street. Vincent led them to a stable where he was clearly known, greeting the owner by name and arranging boarding for their horses. The boarding house was nearby, a 2-story building run by a stern-faced widow who looked Zara up and down with disapproval. "I have 1 room left," the woman said. "You 2 married?" "No, madam," Vincent said quickly. "We need 2 rooms." "I said I have 1 room, you want it or not." Zara saw Vincent preparing to argue and cut him off. "We will take it. Do you have a couch or spare bedding?" "There is a settee. I can bring up extra blankets." They carried their gear upstairs to a small but tidy room with a single bed, a washstand, and the promised settee that looked barely long enough for a child. Vincent immediately moved his bedroll to the settee. "You take the bed," he said. "I have slept on worse." "We could take turns," Zara offered, though she was grateful not to fight him on it. Her body ached from days of hard riding. "I am a light sleeper anyway. Seriously, take the bed." The boarding house owner brought up blankets and a basin of warm water, then left them with a warning that breakfast was at 6 and they had better not be late. Once they were alone, an awkward silence descended. Zara had spent weeks traveling alone or in the company of people she planned to arrest. Sharing a room with a man she had met hours ago felt strange, even with the practical necessities of their situation. "I am going to step out while you wash up and get ready for sleep," Vincent said, reading her discomfort. "I need to check on a few things in town anyway." "Thank you." After he left, she stripped off her dusty clothes and washed thoroughly, grateful for the warm water. She changed into the clean shirt and pants she carried for sleeping, then sat on the bed to check her weapons. 2 pistols, both well maintained and loaded, a rifle she had left with her saddle, a knife in her boot. Her father had taught her that a bounty hunter's weapons were like a carpenter's tools, essential and worth the investment in quality. She was cleaning her pistol when Vincent returned. He carried a paper-wrapped package that he set on the small table. "Sandwiches from the restaurant down the street. Figured you might be hungry." She realized she had not eaten since morning. "That is thoughtful." They sat and ate in companionable quiet. The sandwiches were simple fare, roast beef and cheese on thick bread, but they tasted wonderful. Vincent ate quickly, methodically, like a man used to taking fuel when he could get it. "Can I ask you something?" Zara said. "Sure." "What made you go straight? Most outlaws I have met talk about reform but never actually do it." Vincent set down his sandwich and leaned back in his chair. "I never killed anyone," he said. "That probably sounds like a weak justification, but it mattered to me. I rode with men who robbed and stole, and I did my share of both. But I always told myself I was not like the ones who murdered. Then one night we were robbing a store and things went wrong. One of the men I rode with shot the owner over $20, just killed him like it meant nothing. I saw the man's wife come running in, saw her fall down beside him screaming." He paused, his eyes distant with memory. "I realized that I was part of that. Maybe I did not pull the trigger, but I was there. I helped make it happen. That night I rode away and never went back." "That took courage," Zara said quietly. "It took shame," he corrected. "Courage would have been stopping it. I just ran away and tried to build something different. I bought this land with money I had saved, money I earned from crime. Some days I wonder if I have any right to the peace I have found." "You changed. That matters." "Does it? To the widow of that shopkeeper, my reform means nothing. Her husband is still dead." Zara understood that guilt. She carried her own, different but just as heavy. "My father used to say that we cannot change the past, but we can choose what we do with tomorrow. You chose to build instead of destroy. That has to count for something." Vincent met her eyes and something passed between them, a recognition of shared pain. "Why did you become a bounty hunter? You could have chosen any number of ways to honor your father." "Because I am good at it," she said honestly. "And because every outlaw I bring in is one less person hurting innocent folks. I know I cannot catch them all, but I can catch some. Even if it gets you killed. My father died trying to make the world safer. If I die doing the same, at least it will mean something." "That is a lonely way to live," she shrugged. "I have not found another way yet." They finished eating and Vincent cleared away the papers while Zara prepared for sleep. She slipped under the blankets fully clothed except for her boots, keeping her pistol within reach on the bedside table. Vincent settled onto the settee with his own blanket, and she heard him shifting, trying to find a comfortable position on the too short furniture. "Vincent?" "Yeah, thank you for coming with me. I know you did not have to. Get some sleep, Zara. Tomorrow will be a long day." She closed her eyes and listened to the sounds of the town outside, the distant music and voices, the occasional bark of a dog. Despite the strangeness of the situation, she felt herself drifting toward sleep. Just before she dropped off entirely, she heard Vincent speak softly, almost to himself. "I hope I can keep you safe." The words settled over her like a promise, and for the first time in months, she fell asleep feeling like she was not entirely alone in the world. Dawn came cold and clear. Zara woke to find Vincent already up and gone, his blanket folded neatly on the settee. She dressed quickly and found him downstairs in the dining room, already working through a plate of eggs and biscuits. The boarding house owner poured coffee without being asked, and Zara sat down to her own breakfast, grateful for the hot food. They did not talk much, both focused on preparing for the journey ahead. By the time the sun had fully risen, they were riding north out of Durango with a pack mule carrying extra supplies. Vincent led them along a well-worn road that gradually faded into a lesser trail. The morning was beautiful, the kind of crisp autumn day that made the mountains look close enough to touch. Aspens scattered among the pines showed their fall colors, brilliant gold against the green. "How long until we reach the mining road?" Zara asked. 3 hours if we keep a good pace. "The entrance is hidden unless you know what to look for." The mine company never marked it proper on maps because they did not want claim jumpers finding their operations. They rode in silence for a while, letting the horses find their rhythm. Zara found herself studying Vincent when she thought he was not looking. He sat his horse like he was born to it, relaxed but alert, constantly scanning the terrain around them. She had met many men in her travels, most of them dismissive of her profession or openly hostile to a woman doing such work. Vincent treated her like a capable equal, which was refreshing and slightly unsettling. She was not used to being taken seriously without having to prove herself first. "You keep watching me," Vincent said without turning his head. "Something wrong?" Zara felt heat rise to her cheeks, grateful he was not looking at her. "Just trying to figure you out. Not much to figure. I am a man trying to live a quiet life who apparently cannot help getting involved in trouble when it comes looking. You did not have to get involved. We covered this last night." He glanced at her then, something warm in his expression. "Besides, you grow on a person. Stubborn, reckless bounty hunters seem to be my weakness." She smiled despite herself. "How many stubborn, reckless bounty hunters have you known?" "Just the one so far. But you are making quite an impression." The easy banter felt natural, comfortable in a way Zara had not experienced in a long time. Most of her interactions were transactional, business arrangements that ended when the job was done. This felt different, though she could not quite name how. The trail began to climb as they moved deeper into the foothills. The air grew thinner and cooler. Vincent pointed out landmarks, teaching her to read the terrain the way he did. He showed her how to spot game trails that could serve as alternate routes, how to tell fresh water sources from stagnant ones, which plants were edible and which would make you sick. She absorbed the information eagerly, always hungry to learn new skills. Around midday, they stopped to rest the horses and eat a quick meal of dried beef and hardtack. Vincent found a stream and refilled their canteens with clear mountain water. Zara walked the stiffness out of her legs and studied the path ahead. The mountains loomed larger now, their peaks still holding last winter's snow. "Have you ever been in love?" The question slipped out before she could stop it, born from curiosity and the strange intimacy of shared travel. Vincent looked up from the stream, surprised. "Once. A long time ago. It did not work out." "What happened?" "She wanted me to stay in the outlaw life, said going straight was betraying everything we stood for. I disagreed. We wanted different futures." He capped his canteen and stood. "What about you?" "No time for it. My work is not conducive to relationships." "Or maybe you have not met the right person yet." "Maybe," she admitted. "Though I am not sure what the right person would look like. Someone who would not mind being left for weeks at a time while I chase dangerous criminals." "When you put it that way, it does sound challenging." He smiled. "But the right person would understand that it is part of who you are. They would not ask you to change, just make room for them when you come home." "That sounds nice. Theoretical, but nice." They mounted up and continued riding. The trail grew rougher, forcing them to slow their pace and pick their way carefully over rocky ground. Vincent finally led them off the main path entirely, guiding them through a stand of dense pine trees that opened suddenly onto a narrow track cutting into the mountainside. "This is it," he said. "The old mining road. Stay alert from here on. If the Daltons came this way, they could have left someone watching their back trail." Zara drew her rifle from its saddle holster and laid it across her lap. Vincent did the same. They proceeded carefully, listening for any sound that did not belong to the natural world around them. The road was barely wide enough for the horses in some places, with a steep drop on one side and sheer rock on the other. Zara tried not to look down at the valleys far below. Hours passed in tense silence. The sun tracked across the sky, beginning its descent toward evening. They had seen no sign of other travelers, which could mean they were on the wrong trail or that they were getting close. Vincent finally called a halt as shadows began to lengthen. "We should make camp soon. This is not terrain to navigate in darkness." "How much farther do you think they are ahead of us?" "Hard to say. Could be hours, could be days. But I have been watching the ground. Someone passed through here recently. 3 horses moving at a steady pace." "Could be them." Excitement and nervousness warred in Zara's chest. "Then we are on the right track. Seems like. Let us find a defensible spot to spend the night. If they are close, I would rather face them in daylight." They found a small clearing set back from the main trail, sheltered by rocks on 3 sides with a good view of the approach. Vincent set up a cold camp, no fire that might give away their position. They ate more dried rations and settled in to wait for morning, taking turns on watch. Zara took the first shift, sitting with her rifle across her knees while Vincent slept. The night was incredibly quiet, just wind in the pines and the occasional call of an owl. She thought about the Daltons, about what would happen when they finally caught up. 3 against 2 were not good odds, but she had faced worse. With Vincent beside her, she felt more confident than she had any right to be. When her watch ended, she woke Vincent and tried to sleep. It came fitfully, interrupted by dreams of gunfire and her father's face. She woke once to find Vincent watching her with concern, but he said nothing, just nodded to indicate everything was fine. She closed her eyes again and tried to rest. Morning came gray and misty, the mountains shrouded in low clouds. They ate a hurried breakfast and set out again, moving slowly through the fog. Visibility was poor, which made Zara nervous. They could ride right into the Daltons without warning. As the sun rose higher, the fog began to lift, revealing the trail ahead. Vincent suddenly held up his hand, signaling her to stop. He dismounted and walked forward, crouching to examine something on the ground. When he returned, his expression was serious. "Fresh campfire, maybe 6 hours old. 3 men, they are not far ahead." Zara's pulse quickened. "How far?" "Hard to say, but we need to be ready. From here on, assume we could encounter them at any moment." They secured the pack mule to a tree, not wanting the extra animal to slow them if things went wrong. Zara checked her pistols again, making sure they were loaded and ready. Vincent did the same. They moved forward at a walk, every sense alert. The trail rounded a bend and opened onto a wider section with the ruins of an old mine entrance visible on the hillside. Zara saw them at the same moment Vincent did. 3 men standing beside their horses, clearly in the middle of a discussion. They looked up as Zara and Vincent appeared, hands moving instinctively toward their weapons. "Easy," Vincent called out, keeping his own hands visible. "We are not looking for trouble." The tallest of the 3 men stepped forward. He had the hard eyes of someone who had lived a violent life. "Vincent Vance, did not expect to see you up here." "Hello, Tom, been a while." Tom Dalton looked between Vincent and Zara, his gaze calculating. "You riding the outlaw trail again? Or is this something else? Something else, Vincent said. My friend here is a bounty hunter. She is looking for you and your brothers. I came along to see if we could settle this without anyone getting hurt. The other two Daltons moved to flank their brother, hands on their guns. Zara kept her rifle ready but not raised, trying to project confidence without aggression. A bounty hunter, Tom said with disgust. You brought law after us, Vince. That is low even for someone who turned his back on his old life. You robbed a bank and killed 3 people, Vincent said. That is not the kind of work I ever did, and you know it. Turn yourselves in. Face trial. It is better than dying on this mountain. We are not going to trial, the youngest Dalton said. He looked barely 20 with anger burning in his eyes. We are not spending the rest of our lives in prison. Zara spoke up, keeping her voice level. I am not interested in killing you. But I will bring you in one way or another. You can ride down with me peacefully, or you can run and I will keep following. Either way this ends. Tom laughed, a harsh sound without humor. You are a gutsy woman, I will give you that, but there are 3 of us and 2 of you. You really think you can take us? I know I can, Zara said. The question is whether you are willing to die to avoid justice. The tension stretched taut as wire. Zara saw the moment the decision was made, saw it in the shift of Tom's shoulders. She moved first, diving from her horse as the Daltons drew their weapons. Gunfire erupted, deafening in the mountain air. She rolled and came up firing, aiming for legs and arms, trying to disable rather than kill. Vincent had taken cover behind a rock and was doing the same, his shots carefully placed. The middle Dalton went down with a cry, clutching his shoulder. The youngest took a bullet in the thigh and collapsed. Tom kept firing, backing toward his horse. Give it up, Tom, Vincent shouted. It is over. But Tom Dalton was not the surrendering type. He reached his horse and vaulted into the saddle, spurring the animal into a run. Zara sprinted for her own mount, ignoring the bullets kicking up dirt around her feet. She swung into the saddle and gave chase, dimly aware of Vincent securing the wounded brothers behind her. Tom rode like a man possessed, taking risks on the narrow trail that could easily get him killed. Zara followed, pushing her horse to the edge of its abilities. The trail climbed higher, growing more treacherous. She gained slowly, her lighter weight giving her an advantage. Tom looked back and fired, but the shot went wild. He was running out of trail. Ahead, the path dead ended at an old mine shaft. He realized it at the last second and tried to stop, but his horse was going too fast. The animal reared, panicked, and Tom fell hard, rolling dangerously close to the cliff edge. Zara dismounted and approached carefully, her pistol trained on him. Tom struggled to sit up, his gun lost somewhere in the fall. He looked at her with hatred and resignation. Just shoot me and get it over with, he said. I told you, I do not want you dead. I want you to face justice for what you did. She pulled rope from her saddle and approached. Hands behind your back, he complied, seeming to deflate. As she tied him, she said quietly, Who hired you for the Denver job? Who gave you the plan for that bank? Tom was silent for a long moment. Then he laughed bitterly. You think knowing will change anything? The man who hired us is untouchable. Rich, connected, protected by people more powerful than you can imagine. I want a name. Richard Sutherland, Denver businessman. He wanted the bank robbed to cover his embezzlement. We were supposed to make it look random, but things went wrong. We never meant for people to die. He shook his head. Not that it matters now. Zara felt cold satisfaction settle in her chest. A name. Finally, a name. She secured Tom and helped him to his feet, then marched him back down the trail to where Vincent waited with the other brothers. Both were bandaged, their wounds painful but not life-threatening. Vincent looked relieved when he saw her. You got him. I got him. She began securing Tom with the others. And I got the name I needed. Richard Sutherland. He is the one who ordered the bank robbery. Vincent's expression darkened. I know that name. He is connected to half the politicians in Denver. Getting charges to stick to him will be nearly impossible. I will find a way. I always do. They spent the next hour securing the prisoners and tending to their wounds. The Dalton brothers were sullen but cooperative, knowing resistance would only make things worse. As Zara worked, she felt Vincent watching her with something like admiration. "You are good at this," he said quietly. "Better than most men I knew in the outlaw days." "Practice," she said. But his words warmed her more than they should have. The journey back to Durango took 2 days with the wounded men slowing their pace. They camped each night with the prisoners secured and watched. During the quiet hours, Zara found herself talking with Vincent more freely than she had talked with anyone in years. He told her about building his ranch, about the satisfaction of honest work and watching his horses thrive. She told him about the loneliness of the bounty hunting life, the constant movement and lack of connections. "You ever want to stop?" Vincent asked on the second night. "Settle somewhere and build something permanent." "I do not know what that would look like for me," Zara admitted. "This work is all I know, all I have been since my father died. Maybe it does not have to be all you are forever." She met his eyes across the small fire. "What are you saying?" "I am saying that you are remarkable, Zara Everhart. Smart, brave, capable. But you are also running yourself into the ground chasing ghosts. Eventually, you will need to let yourself rest. I cannot rest while men like Sutherland walk free. You cannot fix every injustice in the world. No one can. At some point, you have to decide what kind of life you want to live." His words stayed with her through the night and into the next day's ride. She thought about her small rented room in Denver, empty except for her gear and a few possessions. She thought about Vincent's ranch, the solid house and healthy animals, the peace she had seen in his eyes when he talked about his horses. Different lives, different choices. They reached Durango in the afternoon and delivered the Dalton brothers to the local marshal. The bounty would be wired to Zara within a few days. The marshal was impressed despite himself, grudgingly admitting that she had done good work. He took her statement about Richard Sutherland with skepticism, but promised to pass it along to the authorities in Denver. As they left the marshal's office, Zara felt the familiar letdown that came after a successful hunt. The chase was over, the quarry caught, and now there was just emptiness where purpose had been. She should have been planning her next job, thinking about which bounty to pursue next. Instead, she found herself wanting to delay her return to Denver. "Come back to the ranch," Vincent said, as if reading her thoughts. "Stay for a few days. Rest before you head back." "I should not." "Why not? You earned a break. The bounty money will take time to process anyway. And I could use help with some of the horses. I have 3 that need training and only 2 hands." She knew she should refuse. Getting too comfortable, too attached to this place and this man would only make leaving harder. But she was tired, bone-deep tired, and the thought of staying somewhere peaceful for a few days was too appealing to resist. "All right," she said. "A few days." Vincent's smile was like sunrise, bright and warming. "Good, let us get supplies and head out. I will introduce you to the horses that need training. Fair warning, 2 of them are stubborn as hell." "I like stubborn," Zara said. "Stubborn, I understand." The ranch felt different when they arrived this time. Before, it had been just a stop on the trail, a place to gather information. Now it felt welcoming, a refuge from the constant movement of her life. Vincent showed her to the small bunkhouse where his hired hand usually stayed, a clean space with a bed and a stove. "Make yourself comfortable," he said. "Dinner is in 2 hours. I hope you like stew because it is about the only thing I can cook." Stew sounds perfect. She cleaned up and changed into fresh clothes, then wandered out to the corral to watch Vincent work with the horses. He moved among them with patient confidence, speaking in low tones as he handled a spirited young mare. The animal was nervous but responding to his calm presence, gradually settling. "She is beautiful," Zara said, leaning on the fence. "She is a handful," Vincent replied. "But she has good bones and a smart eye. She will make someone a fine horse once she learns to trust." "How long does that usually take?" "Depends on the horse. Some learn in weeks, others take months. You cannot rush it. You have to work with their nature, not against it." Zara heard the deeper meaning in his words. "Is that a philosophy or just horse training?" "Both, I suppose." He led the mare back to the stable and returned, wiping his hands on his pants. "People are not so different from horses. We all need to learn to trust at our own pace." They ate dinner together as the sun set. Simple stew and bread that tasted wonderful after days of trail rations. Vincent was easy company, talking about his plans for the ranch and asking about her travels. She found herself sharing stories she usually kept private, things she had seen and people she had met. He listened with genuine interest, asking questions that showed he was really hearing her. After dinner, they sat on the porch and watched stars emerge in the darkening sky. The air was cool and clear, carrying the scent of pine and earth. Zara felt something in her chest loosen, some tight knot of tension she had been carrying for months. "This is nice," she said quietly. "It is," Vincent agreed. "I never get tired of it. Every evening I sit out here and remember why I fought so hard to build this place." "Do you ever regret leaving the outlaw life? Miss the excitement?" "No, that life was hollow. Always looking over my shoulder, never able to stay in one place long enough to matter to anyone. This is better. Harder in some ways, but better." "I think I understand that." He turned to look at her. "You could have this too, you know, a place to belong, people who matter." "I do not know if I am built for that kind of life. Maybe you are more capable of it than you think." The moment stretched between them, charged with possibility. Zara felt the pull of something dangerous and wonderful, a connection that went beyond simple attraction. She liked Vincent, respected him, felt safe with him in a way she had not felt safe with anyone since her father died. But safety was not part of her world, and letting herself want it seemed like inviting heartbreak. "I should get some sleep," she said, standing abruptly. "Tomorrow I want to try working with that mare you were training." "Sure," Vincent said, though she heard disappointment in his voice. "Sleep well, Zara." She lay awake in the bunkhouse for a long time, staring at the ceiling and thinking about choices and consequences. Somewhere along the trail from Durango, she had started falling for Vincent Vance, and she had no idea what to do about it. The next few days passed in a rhythm that felt both strange and natural. Zara worked with the horses each morning, learning the patience and technique required to gentle them. Vincent was a good teacher, showing her how to read the animal's body language and respond appropriately. She discovered she had an aptitude for the work, finding satisfaction in the small victories as the horses gradually grew more comfortable with her presence. In the afternoons, she helped with ranch chores, mending fences and mucking stables and 100 other tasks that needed doing. The physical labor was grounding, connecting her to the earth and the present moment in a way her usual work never did. Bounty hunting was all adrenaline and planning, constant motion toward the next target. This was different, slower, and more deliberate. Evenings were spent with Vincent, sharing meals and conversation. They talked about everything and nothing, building the kind of easy intimacy that usually took months or years. She told him about her childhood in Philadelphia, about her mother who had died when she was young and her father who had raised her alone. He shared memories of his own difficult upbringing, a father who drank and a mother who left when he was 10. They had both come from broken places, both learned to survive however they could. On the fourth day, while they were working together to train a particularly stubborn gelding, Vincent asked the question she had been avoiding. "When are you planning to leave?" Zara did not meet his eyes. "Soon. My bounty money should be processed by now. I need to get back to Denver and follow up on the Sutherland lead." "Do you have to?" "What do you mean?" Vincent secured the horse and turned to face her fully. "I mean, do you have to go back to that life? Could you choose something different?" "Vincent, I know it is fast. I know we have only known each other a week, but I have never met anyone like you, Zara. You are strong and smart, and you make me want to be better than I am. Stay here. Stay with me. Help me build this ranch into something real." Her heart ached with want and fear. "I cannot just abandon everything I have worked for." "Why not? You are chasing a man who might be untouchable, risking your life for justice that might never come. Is that really the future you want? Or are you just afraid to imagine something different?" "I am not afraid," she said, but it sounded weak even to her own ears. "Prove it. Stay for 1 month. Give us a real chance. If after a month you still want to leave, I will not stop you, but at least you will know what you are choosing." She wanted to say no, to protect herself from the vulnerability of caring about someone this much. But looking into Vincent's eyes, seeing the hope and longing there, she could not find the words to refuse. "1 month," she said. "But if Sutherland makes a move or if there is a lead that needs following, I have to go." "Understood. 1 month." He pulled her into his arms and she let herself sink into the embrace. He was solid and warm and he smelled like leather and horses and home. She had not realized how hungry she was for this kind of contact, this simple human comfort. That night, Vincent made dinner with more care than usual, cooking steaks and roasting vegetables, opening a bottle of wine he had been saving. They ate by lamplight and talked about plans for the ranch. He wanted to expand the breeding program, maybe start selling trained horses to the army. She found herself offering suggestions, getting caught up in the vision he was building. After dinner, they moved to the porch again. The night was warm for autumn, stars scattered thick across the sky. Vincent took her hand, his thumb tracing circles on her palm. "I am glad you are staying," he said quietly. "So am I," she admitted. He turned her hand over and kissed her wrist, gentle as a question. She leaned into him, answering with her body what she could not quite say with words. When he kissed her properly, it felt like coming home and stepping into the unknown all at once. She wrapped her arms around his neck and let herself fall into the moment, into the feeling of being wanted and safe. They took things slowly over the following weeks, building trust and intimacy in careful increments. Zara moved into the main house, into Vincent's bed, and learned what it meant to wake up beside someone who cared for her. She learned his routines and quirks, the way he sang to the horses when he thought no one was listening, how he always made coffee too strong and burned the bacon. He learned her nightmares, the way she sometimes woke gasping from dreams of her father dying. He held her through the fear and never asked her to be anything other than exactly who she was. He learned that she liked to read before bed, that she was terrible at baking but good with her hands when it came to fixing things, that she had a dry sense of humor that emerged when she felt safe. The month passed like a dream. Zara felt herself changing, softening in ways that would have terrified her before. The constant readiness for violence that had defined her life began to fade, replaced by a different kind of awareness. She noticed the way light fell through the barn windows, the sound of rain on the roof, the taste of fresh bread. Small things she had never had time for before, but beneath the peace, uncertainty lurked. She had wired inquiries to Denver about Richard Sutherland and received troubling news. He had powerful friends protecting him, and her accusations were being dismissed as the ravings of a vengeful bounty hunter. The Dalton brothers had recanted their confession, claiming she had threatened them into making false statements. Without their testimony, there was no case against Sutherland. Vincent found her reading the telegram with tears of frustration in her eyes. "What happened?" he asked. She handed him the paper. He read it, his expression darkening. "This is wrong. This is the world. The rich and powerful protect their own. I should have known better than to hope for justice." "So what are you going to do?" She met his eyes. "I do not know. Part of me wants to go to Denver and confront him myself, force him to confess somehow, but I know that is foolish. I would just get myself arrested or killed." Vincent pulled her close. "Or you could accept that sometimes justice does not work the way it should. You did your part. You caught the Daltons, you got the truth. That Sutherland walks free is not your failure. It feels like failure. I know. But you cannot carry the weight of the whole world, Zara. You have to let some of it go." Over the next few days, she wrestled with the decision. The month she had promised was nearly over. She could stay with Vincent, build a life on this ranch, let go of the bounty hunting that had consumed her for years. Or she could return to Denver, keep fighting for justice even if it meant endless frustration and loneliness. The answer came unexpectedly. She was working with the stubborn gelding, finally making progress after weeks of patient effort when a rider appeared on the road to the ranch. The man was dressed in the dark suit of a federal marshal, and he carried himself with the authority of law. Vincent and Zara met him together. The marshal introduced himself as Thomas Wright from the Denver office. He looked at Zara with respect. "Miss Everhart, I have been trying to reach you for days. Your work on the Dalton case was exceptional, and your lead on Richard Sutherland bore fruit. We have been investigating him independently, and with the Daltons' original testimony plus evidence we uncovered, we have enough to arrest him. He is going to trial." Zara felt shock and relief flood through her. "The Daltons recanted. I thought the case was dead." "They recanted under pressure from Sutherland's lawyers. But we found the original statements and gathered corroborating evidence. Your work gave us the thread we needed to pull. Justice is slow, Miss Everhart, but sometimes it catches up." After the marshal left, promising to keep her informed of the trial's progress, Zara stood in the yard feeling unmoored. The quest that had driven her for months was over, resolved without her needing to do anything more. The revenge she had sought for her father had been achieved, at least partially. The men who worked with his killers were in custody, and the man who had ordered the robbery would face trial. "What now?" Vincent asked quietly. Zara looked at him, at the ranch, at the life they had been building together. She thought about her empty room in Denver, about the lonely trails and dangerous men, about all the things she had sacrificed in pursuit of justice. Then she thought about waking up beside Vincent, about training horses and watching sunsets, about belonging somewhere and mattering to someone. "Now I stay," she said. "If you will still have me." Vincent's smile was brilliant. "Always, for as long as you want. That might be a very long time." "I am counting on it." They sealed the promise with a kiss, standing in the yard of what was no longer just his ranch but theirs. The future stretched out before them, uncertain in details but clear in its foundation. They would build something together, something good and lasting. Over the following months, Zara settled fully into her new life. She helped Vincent expand the breeding program and proved to have a gift for training difficult horses. Word spread about their skills, and buyers began coming from across Colorado and beyond. The ranch prospered, growing from a one-man operation into a respected business. Zara still kept her guns and her skills sharp, but she no longer needed them for survival. She occasionally took consulting work for local marshals, using her tracking abilities to help find missing people or locate witnesses. But the violent, solitary life of a bounty hunter was behind her. She had found something better. Vincent proposed on a spring evening, 1 year after she had first ridden up to his ranch hunting outlaws. They were sitting on the porch watching stars, just as they had done so many nights. He produced a simple gold band and asked her to be his wife with words that were awkward and heartfelt and perfect. She said yes, without hesitation. They married in Durango in a small ceremony with a handful of friends and neighbors. The marriage certificate listed their names, Vincent William Vance and Zara Everhart, joining two people who had both been running from their pasts until they found each other. The preacher who married them commented that he had never seen two people look so certain about their choice, and he was right. They were certain in a way that came from really knowing each other, from having fought and struggled and chosen love anyway. Their wedding night was spent at the ranch, in the home they had built together. Vincent carried her over the threshold despite her laughing protests that she was perfectly capable of walking. They made love with the tenderness of deep familiarity and the passion of two people who had found something precious and rare. In the morning, Zara woke to find Vincent watching her sleep. "What are you thinking about?" she asked. "How lucky I am. How close I came to never knowing you." "I was thinking the same thing. If I had not gone to that saloon in Durango, if I had not asked about the Daltons, if you had not decided to help me. But you did, and I did, and here we are." "Here we are," she agreed. Life settled into a comfortable rhythm. They worked hard during the days and held each other at night. They argued sometimes, two strong-willed people learning to compromise and share space. But the arguments never lasted long, resolved by honest conversation and mutual respect. 2 years after their marriage, Zara discovered she was pregnant. The news filled her with joy and terror in equal measure. She had never imagined herself as a mother, had never thought she would live long enough or settle down enough for children. But looking at Vincent's delighted face when she told him, she could not imagine wanting anything else. Their son was born on a cool October evening, entering the world with a fierce cry that made his parents laugh through their tears. They named him Henry, after Zara's father. He had Vincent's dark hair and Zara's stubborn determination, and they loved him with an intensity that surprised them both. Parenthood changed them, adding new dimensions to their relationship. Vincent was patient and gentle with the baby, singing the same songs to him that he sang to the horses. Zara discovered a fierce protectiveness she had not known she possessed, a willingness to do anything to keep her child safe. Together they navigated the sleepless nights and endless questions, learning as they went. When Henry was 2, Zara felt ready for another child. Their daughter, Grace, was born on a spring morning, tiny and perfect. She had her father's eyes and her mother's fearless spirit. With 2 children, the ranch felt complete, full of laughter and noise and the beautiful chaos of family life. The years passed in a blur of growth and change. Henry grew tall and strong, naturally gifted with horses like his father. Grace was more interested in books and learning, asking endless questions about everything. Zara taught them both to shoot and track, skills she insisted they needed even in their relatively peaceful life. Vincent taught them about the land and animals, about the importance of honest work. Zara sometimes thought about her old life, about the woman who had ridden into Durango hunting outlaws. That woman felt like a stranger now. Driven by anger and loneliness, she no longer carried. She had let go of the rage that had fueled her for so long, replacing it with something better. Love, family, purpose that did not require violence. Richard Sutherland was convicted and spent 5 years in prison before dying of a heart attack. The Dalton brothers served their sentences and were released as old men, broken by their time behind bars. Zara felt no satisfaction in their suffering, just relief that justice had been served and she could close that chapter of her life completely. Vincent thrived as a husband and father, growing into the kind of man he had always wanted to be. The ranch became one of the most successful in the region, known for quality horses and fair dealing. He often said that Zara was the reason for his success, that her arrival had given him purpose beyond simple survival. She always replied that they had saved each other, which was closer to the truth. On their 10th wedding anniversary, they hired someone to watch the children and spent the night in Durango, returning to the boarding house where they had shared that first awkward night. The owner was gone, replaced by a younger woman, but the room was the same. They lay in the narrow bed together, remembering who they had been and marveling at who they had become. "Do you ever regret it?" Vincent asked. "Giving up bounty hunting? All the excitement and adventure?" "Never," Zara said. "I have more adventure in one day with you and the children than I had in years chasing criminals. It is just better adventure, the kind that builds something instead of tearing things down. I love you, Zara Vance. I love you too." They returned to the ranch the next morning to find their children had attempted to make breakfast and created a magnificent disaster in the kitchen. Flour covered every surface, and something that might have once been eggs was burning on the stove. Henry and Grace looked up with identical expressions of guilty pride. "We wanted to surprise you," Henry explained. "We are definitely surprised," Vincent said, trying not to laugh. They cleaned up together, the four of them, and made a proper breakfast as a family. As they ate, Zara looked around the table at the faces of the people she loved most in the world and felt contentment settle in her bones. This was what she had been searching for all those years, though she had not known it. Not justice or revenge or even purpose, but this. Connection, belonging, love. The children grew and eventually began lives of their own. Henry took over the ranch, running it with the same dedication his father had shown. He married a local girl who loved horses as much as he did, and they gave Vincent and Zara grandchildren who kept them young and exhausted in the best possible way. Grace became a teacher, opening a school in Durango and educating a generation of children. She married a quiet man who worked at the bank, and they had children who inherited their mother's love of learning. Vincent and Zara grew old together, their hair graying and their bodies slowing, but their love remaining constant. They spent their final years sitting on the porch they had shared for decades, watching grandchildren play in the yard and remembering all the years that had brought them to this place. On a quiet summer evening when they were both well into their 70s, Vincent took Zara's hand and said, "It was a good life, was it not?" "The best," she agreed. "I would not change a single thing. Not even the stubborn cowboy who talked you into staying, especially not him. He was the best thing that ever happened to me." They sat in comfortable silence as the sun set over the mountains, the same mountains where they had chased outlaws a lifetime ago. The ranch was peaceful, thriving under Henry's care. Their children and grandchildren were healthy and happy. They had built something lasting, something good. Zara thought about the angry young woman who had ridden into Durango hunting revenge. She had found so much more than she had been looking for. She had found love, family, peace, and purpose. She had found home. Vincent squeezed her hand gently. "What are you thinking about?" "Everything. Nothing. How grateful I am for all of it." "Me too." As darkness fell and stars emerged, they remained on the porch, two people who had found each other against all odds and built a beautiful life together. The ranch around them was full of their legacy, children and grandchildren who would carry forward the lessons they had learned and the love they had shared. Years later, when their story was told by grandchildren to great-grandchildren, it always began the same way. Great-grandmother came west hunting outlaws, but great-grandfather made her forget the bounty. And then the teller would smile and add, and they lived happily ever after because they chose each other every single day. It was a simple story in the end. A woman running from her pain met a man trying to leave his past behind. Together they built something neither could have created alone. They raised children, trained horses, watched sunsets, and grew old in the place they had made their own. The ranch stood for generations after them, a testament to what two broken people could create when they found the courage to stop running and start building. The Vance name became synonymous with quality and integrity in Colorado, a legacy that Vincent and Zara would have been proud to claim. But if you had asked them, in those final golden years, what they were most proud of, it would not have been the successful ranch or their accomplished children. It would have been the simple fact that they had found each other and held on, through good times and hard, through all the years that life gave them. They had loved well and fully, and in the end, that was the only thing that truly mattered. The story of Zara Everhart, who came west hunting outlaws, and Vincent Vance, the reformed cowboy who made her forget the bounty, became a legend in Durango. People told it to illustrate that redemption was possible, that love could heal old wounds, that the future did not have to be determined by the past. But to those who lived it, it was never a legend. It was simply their life, remarkable only in how ordinary and beautiful it had been. Two people, flawed and struggling, who found each other at exactly the right moment and chose to build something lasting. And when the final chapter closed, when both had passed peacefully in their sleep within days of each other, the people who knew them best said it was fitting. They had found each other in life and could not bear to be parted in death. The ranch held a joint memorial, and people came from across Colorado to pay respects to two people who had touched many lives simply by living with integrity and love. Their graves stood side by side in the small cemetery on the ranch property, overlooking the mountains where their story had begun. The headstone was simple, bearing their names and the dates of their lives, with a single inscription chosen by their children. Together, they found home. Visitors to the ranch in later years often asked to hear the story, and someone would always be willing to tell it. The details might vary slightly with each telling, but the heart of it remained constant. A bounty hunter and a reformed outlaw, brought together by circumstance, choosing to stay together because of love. It was a story that reminded people that change was possible, that the choices we make define us more than the circumstances we are born into, and that love, real love, was worth whatever sacrifices it required. The ranch continued to thrive, generation after generation, each one adding their own chapter to the story that Vincent and Zara had begun. But always, at the foundation, was that original choice. The choice to stay, to build, to love, to trust that tomorrow could be better than yesterday. In the end, Zara Everhart had come west hunting outlaws, seeking revenge and justice and purpose. What she found instead was Vincent Vance, a man trying to outrun his past and build a better future. Together they created something neither had imagined possible. A home, a family, a legacy of love that endured long after they were gone. It was a simple story, told countless times in countless ways. But it never lost its power to move people, to remind them that redemption was possible, and love was real, and the future was always unwritten, waiting for brave hearts to shape it into something beautiful. And so the story ended as all the best stories do, with love triumphant and the promise that such love, once found, never truly dies but lives on in the hearts and lives of those who follow. Zara and Vincent's story became part of the land itself, woven into the history of the ranch, and the town and the mountains where they had built their life together. Future generations would walk the same trails they had ridden, work with descendants of the horses they had trained, and sleep under the same stars they had watched together. And sometimes, on quiet evenings when the wind moved through the pines just right, people said you could almost feel their presence. Two souls so perfectly matched that even death could not truly separate them. The legacy they left was not measured in money or property, though they left both in abundance. It was measured in the lives they had touched, the children they had raised, the love they had shared, and the example they had set. They had shown that it was never too late to change, never too late to choose love, never too late to build something beautiful from broken pieces. And that, in the end, was the greatest treasure anyone could leave behind. Not gold or land or fame, but the simple, profound truth that love transforms, heals, and endures. That two people, damaged and seeking, can find each other and create something whole. That home is not a place but a person, and family is not defined by blood alone but by choice and commitment and the daily decision to stay, to build, to love. The sun set over the Vance ranch one final time in our telling, casting long shadows across the land that Zara and Vincent had loved. The horses grazed peacefully, the house stood solid and welcoming, and somewhere in the distance, children's laughter echoed across the valley. It was perfect. It was complete. It was exactly what two lost souls had created when they found each other in the wild mountains of Colorado Territory so many years ago. And they all lived happily ever after, because they chose to, every single day, for all the days they were given. The end of their story was not an ending at all, but a beginning that continued in every life they had touched, every person they had loved, every choice they had made to build instead of destroy, to forgive instead of seek revenge, to love instead of hate. The bounty Zara had sought when she came west was nothing compared to the treasure she found. And Vincent, the reformed cowboy who had been running from his past, discovered that the future was worth more than anything he had left behind. Together, they wrote a story worth telling, worth remembering, worth sharing with generations yet to come. A story of love found in unexpected places, of redemption earned through daily choices, of a life well lived in partnership and joy. And so we leave them, resting in peace on the land they loved, surrounded by the legacy they created, their story complete and perfect and true. A bounty hunter and a cowboy, an unlikely pair who became the foundation of something lasting and good. Their happily ever after was earned through struggle and choice, and the courage to believe that tomorrow could be better than yesterday. The story ends, but the love continues, echoing through time in the lives they touched, and the family they built, and the example they set. Zara came west hunting outlaws, but she found Vincent instead, and in finding him, she found everything she had truly been seeking all along: home, love, peace, family, purpose, a life worth living, shared with a partner worth loving. And that, as they say, is the very best kind of happy ending there is.